And then Vehapesach, and the sacrifice of Pesach. The sacrifice of Pesach is fascinating, because on one hand, it's a very individual sacrifice. Every Jew had to offer the sacrifice, and every Paschal sacrifice, a lamb or whatever it was, is only allowed to be eaten by the members who were designated. They had to be designated, who were members in this sacrifice. In Egypt, there was every family. Every family ate their own sacrifice. Every family was quarantined. They stayed at home, they were quarantined at home, and they ate their own sacrifice. Even in the temple, every sacrifice you had to have a designated group. You couldn't just move around this sacrifice, the other sacrifice, no. You have to be designated, and the only ones who are allowed to eat it are those who were designated from beforehand on this sacrifice. They're the only ones who are allowed to eat from this sacrifice. So it was like very individual, highly individualized. It was like a personal sacrifice, an individual sacrifice. And every Jew is obligated to bring. You could become a member. You don't have to bring your own sacrifice. You can make a member, the family or friends or whatever, and you all bring one animal together, one sacrifice together. It's fine. But it was for those people and those people only. So it was very individualistic. On the other hand, the Paschal lamb, the Paschal sacrifice, is also viewed as a communal sacrifice. It's a combination. It's a communal sacrifice and it's a private sacrifice. Why would it be viewed as a communal sacrifice? Because the entire Jewish people were physically together in the temple bringing the sacrifice at the same time. It all had to be brought at the same time. The afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, right before Pesach, had to be brought that afternoon, and then everyone had to eat it in their groups, in their own individual groups. They had to eat it that night. Everyone ate it together, everyone brought it together. And it was a designated time. It's not like the other individual sacrifice, other personal, private sacrifice. I could bring a burnt offering whenever I volunteer, whenever I want. Thanksgiving offering, peace offering, and even the individual sin offerings, whenever I sin, whenever I bring it, or the guilt offerings. But here, it was like a communal sacrifice. Communal sacrifices had a designated time, like Rosh Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, holidays. This also has a designated time. And everyone was physically together in the temple offering the sacrifice. Everyone was eating together the sacrifice in Jerusalem at the same time, in their own personal groups. So it was a very interesting combination. And Pesach was so fundamental, such a fundamental sacrifice. It's the only sacrifice that, even though there was a designated time, usually any sacrifice that has a designated time, if you blow it, if you don't offer it, it's too late. I missed the boat. I missed the plane. It's gone. It's over. But I couldn't bring it. Okay, you missed the plane. You couldn't make it. There was traffic. Okay, well, what can I do? You missed it. There's nothing I can do. Pesach is the only sacrifice where you get a second chance. The Jewish people who couldn't bring, those individual Jews who couldn't bring the Pesach, cried to Hashem, how could we miss out on the Pesach? And Hashem gave them a second chance. Why this sacrifice? This sacrifice, you must make sure to bring a Pesach. Because Pesach is the birth of the Jewish people. It's the birthday of the Jewish people. That's when we became a people. Hashem took us out of Egypt. It's the birth of holiness. It's the foundation. So I can't be a Jew unless I bring a Korban Pesach. It's like I'm missing the cornerstone. I'm missing the foundation. If you're missing the foundation, you have nothing to build on. Pesach is the foundation of holiness. That's why even the convert has to celebrate Pesach. Why does the convert have to celebrate Pesach? His ancestors weren't in Egypt. You're sitting in that God. Our ancestors were in Egypt, were in slavery. Your ancestors were in Egypt. You're not Jew. You weren't born Jewish. But he's part of the Jewish people. It's the birth of holiness. So anyone who's a Jew, it doesn't matter whether biologically and physically you are the biological descendants of those original Jews who were physically in Egypt. But spiritually, holiness was in bondage. Holiness was in prison. And there was a birth of holiness, a breakthrough, a miraculous freeing of holiness, an exposure of holiness when Egypt was crushed, and holiness and the Jewish people and their faith emerge in all its glory and all its beauty. And this repeats itself each and every Pesach. Each and every year we have to relive and re-experience, and even a higher level, that very same experience. Every year you have to have the birth and the birth of Judaism, the birth of the Jewish people, the birth of a holiness. And if you don't participate in that, then I can't participate in anything else that follows. It's essential. I can't live without it. That's why they cried, how can we miss out on the Korban Pesach? It's not possible. And because the Korban Pesach is so essential, that's why we find these two characteristics about the Korban Pesach. Because this is so essential, this defines Judaism. This is what tells us that Judaism is emes. Judaism is unique. It's not like any other ism. In all other isms, and that's how you know it's a false ism. All these isms are false isms. How do you know it's a false ism? In all these false isms, you sacrifice the individual for the community. In the name of ideology, all the communists, they were ready to sacrifice 20 million Russians for the sake of communism, for the purity of the ideology. In Soviet Russia and the Soviet America, in the name of communism, they're ready to sacrifice individuals, lose their jobs, lose their livelihood, destroy their families, destroy their children, destroy their education. For the sake of an ideology, for purity, we have to sacrifice the individual. We have to sacrifice one individual, hundreds of thousands of individuals, millions of individuals, destroy their lives, destroy their livelihoods. This is the evil of their ideology. This is how you know that the ideology is false. It's not godly, it's not emes. What's the sign of emes? The sign that Judaism is divine and is truly godly? That we never ever sacrifice the individual for the sake of the community. There's a law in halacha, in Judaism. If a city of 1 million people are surrounded by the enemy, and they tell us, hand us over one person, we'll kill him and we'll spare all of you. If not, we're going to kill all of you. What does Jewish law say? Let the entire city die. You have no right. Fight, defend yourself. You have no right to become a murderer, to save your life at the expense of one person. This is emes. Because if every soul is infinite, if life is divine, life comes from within. All the scientists in the world can't create the life of a fly. Life is miraculous, it's divine. We're not machines. Life is godly. One life, 1 times infinity, 6 million times infinity equal the same. If you can destroy one life, then you can destroy 6 million. If you can't destroy 6 million, you can't destroy one life. If life is sacred, then every life is sacred, every individual life. The entire sun is just as equally reflected in one drop of the ocean, just like it's reflected by the entire ocean. Every drop reflects the whole entire sun. Every one of us reflects Hashem, the infinite, Hashem himself. The entire 10 commandments, with the thunder and lightning, it only happened once, it will never happen again. Revelation. Hashem speaks in the singular. Hashem is not addressing himself to the whole community. Hashem says, Anoichi Hashem Elokech, I am your God, your personal God. All that thunder and lightning is relevant and applicable to each individual Jew. This is the whole revolution of modern physics. And in the tiniest, in the atom is just as infinite and just as infinitely complex as the whole universe. And if you approach the atom properly, you can unleash tremendous power and energy. Because you can find the infinite even in the tiniest. If something is emes, then it's 100%. If something is emes, then even 1% of it reflects the whole thing. If it's essence, if it's core and essential and essence, even the tiniest it reflects the whole. And that's why if the entire Jewish people together could bring Mashiach, then that means that one Jew doing one single mitzvah could also single-handedly bring Mashiach. That one single mitzvah has the power to reveal the emes, the amitis imatin nimtzu kolam tzayim, the emes of this world, the true core nature of this world, that this world is essentially nothing other than the true essence of Hashem. Comes from the true essence of Hashem. The power of one mitzvah, the power of one individual, the power of one Jew. So you can never hide behind ideology to beat up on another person, to harm another person. Now, if that individual is harming the community is allowed to defend themselves. You're not allowed to harm another person. The moment you pursue another person and try to kill him or to rape him, you forfeited the privilege of life. Life is a privilege. And Hashem did not give you life in order to harm another person. The moment you lift up a finger to harm another person, or to kill another person, to rape another person, or you're damaging the community, you're harming the community, you're informing on the community, then the community has an obligation to defend itself. And the bystanders also have an obligation to stop this would-be pursuer, this would-be murderer, this would-be musser, to stop him, even if it means taking his life, if that's the only way you can stop him. Because that person has forfeited his privilege of life. You have no rights, you have privileges. God gave you the privilege of life if you're going to use your life productively, follow the 7 Noahide laws and live a moral, ethical, and spiritual and righteous life. But the community is never allowed to sacrifice the individual. On the other hand, the individual can't just live for himself. The individual is part of the whole. Where part of the whole is greater than the sum total of its parts. We're all part of something larger than all of us put together. We're part of Klal Yisrael. We're part of every Jew that ever lived, every Jew that's alive today, every Jew that will ever live. Moses can live in isolation, as great as he is. He needs 9 simple Jews to make a minyan, to connect with Hashem, to read the Torah, to make a blessing, and to say Kaddish, and to daven with a minyan, to sanctify Hashem. You need to connect and plug in with the community. Aaron has to be married and plugged into the community in order to enter into the Holy of Holies on the holiest day, in order for the holiest Jew to enter. Only he has to plug into the community, he has to belong and be part of the community. You don't live in isolation. So the individual is part of the community. The community has to completely respect the individual. It's like a paradox, but just like a Torah scroll. On one hand, in order for a Torah scroll to be kosher, it has to have every letter. If one letter is missing, any letter, then Shema Yisrael, you can't read Shema Yisrael. Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Because if one letter is missing, the whole entire Torah is invalid. You stop the reading in public, you tie the Torah on the outside, you take it to the ark, right after Shabbos, you fix it as soon as you can, and you take out another Torah. On the other hand, if 2 letters are touching each other, the Torah is also invalid. Every letter has to be surrounded by white space, has to be separate, distinct, unique, apart. So you have to be in one Torah scroll. Every letter is indispensable, and every letter is part of the whole. You can't live in isolation. On the other hand, you have to respect the space and the privacy and the uniqueness of each and every letter. And this is the paradox that we find in prayer when the Jew davens. On one hand, you're davening in the minyan, you're davening with the community, you're part of a community. In the synagogue, you have men, women, children, everyone is davening. But on the other hand, the climax of prayer, the Shemona Esrei, everyone has to daven silently, quietly, alone. You're not allowed to look to your right, to your left. No one is allowed to distract you. No one's allowed to walk in front of you. No distractions. No, you're totally focused on your conversation, your personal, private, intimate conversation with Hashem personally. Baruch Atah Hashem. Talking to Hashem directly. So it's like a paradox. You have the energy and the power of the community, but on the other hand, it's a very personal and private affair. The community does not erase the individuality. And that's the reason we don't sit with our families when we daven. Because I'm not going to the theater. It's not a family affair. It's a very personal affair. I have a personal relationship with Hashem that transcends my relationship with my wife and my children. It's a very personal, very intimate. On the other hand, my family is here. We're all together under the same roof, and we're all davening together. Just like the Korban Pesach. We're all together. The entire Jewish people were together, physically in the same place, in the same time, doing the same thing. And yet everyone was their own space and their own individuality and their own boundaries. So it's that ultimate paradox. Because usually when you're in a communal space, it erases the individual. If you're in an individual space, you're out meditating on some mountaintop, then you erase the community. It's me, myself, and God. There's no one else. Here you have that perfect combination or that paradox. You have the community, and within the community, the individual is able to thrive. As an individual, it doesn't take away from the individual, it doesn't suppress the individuality, on the contrary, highlights the individuality, and the individuality doesn't suppress, doesn't take away from the fact that I am part of a community, I'm part of something larger than myself. And they both work hand in hand, and they both enhance each other. The individuality fuels the sense of community, the sense of community fuels the sense of individuality. This is the birth of Judaism, this is the birth of holiness, this is the sign of emes. This tells us we're touching something divine. This is real, this is emes, this is divine. It's squaring the circle, it's like quantum mechanics, it's an ultimate paradox. This is reality, this is how reality looks like, this is what reality looks like, this is what Hashem looks like. So that's the Pesach. So Kedoshim Kalid, so these 3, the Bechor, the firstborn, and the Maaser and the tithing. Vehapesach and the Paschal offering, Kedoshim Kal, is sacrifices of lesser sanctity. Therefore, Shchitasim B'Hamakom Bazar, you can slaughter it anywhere in the courtyard. You only need 1 sprinkling, any side of the altar, against the base of the altar. It has to be on the wall, but against the base of the altar, where it had a base, which was not on the south side, not on the eastern side, either on the northern side or on the western side. It has to be against the base. Shina b'achilasan, but there's a difference how they're eaten. Habechor, Only the kohanim are allowed to eat the bechor. It's sacred. Vehamaaser, but the animal, the 10th animal that you tithe, you designated, that you marked, you counted and you marked and you designated, you offer it in the temple as an offering, but anyone could eat it. There's nothing sacred. And you don't have to give any parts of it to the kohen. It totally belongs to the owner. You can eat them, all three of them. You can eat all three of them anywhere in Jerusalem. You can eat it any way you like it. The Bechor and the Maaser you can eat anywhere in Jerusalem. And you can eat it the day that you offer the sacrifice, that night and the next day, until evening. But our Pesach is different. The Pesach sacrifice, you only can eat it at night, unlike any other sacrifice. All other sacrifices that you eat, you start eating it as soon as you offer it, the day that you offer it. Pesach, no, you have to offer it in the day, you have to wait. Can't touch it. I can't start eating it until it's night, the night that they left Egypt. You have to eat it the night that you left Egypt, so I can't eat it on the 14th in the afternoon. You could only eat it until midnight. And here we have an argument already, whether this is biblical or whether it's rabbinic. But everyone holds you could only eat it until midnight. But here he seems to be saying that biblically you could only eat it up until midnight. Not the rabbi said, because he doesn't leave it for last. He says, you're not allowed to eat it only till midnight. Previously he said you can eat it till midnight. He's saying you're not allowed to eat it only until midnight. Biblically you're not allowed to eat it. That's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Akiva argues and said that you could eat it all night. It's only the rabbis say you should only eat it until midnight. So that's an argument amongst the Tanoim. But nevertheless, this chapter, there's no overt argument. He doesn't mention any overt argument. Not everything he says there follows everyone's opinion. Like in this example. This is one example. This is not unanimous opinion. Not everyone holds that biblically you must eat the sacrifice until midnight, when they were freed. We also learned earlier, Sidam and Nisrafim, the he-goats which were burnt, which is only according to the opinion that if a kohen made an erroneous ruling for himself regarding idolatry, he didn't bring a he-goat. He brought a she-goat. And you wouldn't burn it. It would be a regular sacrifice. The only time you bring a he-goat and that's burnt is only if the Jewish Supreme Court made an erroneous ruling regarding idolatry, in a law regarding idolatry. And if the Jewish people follow that ruling because of the Jewish Supreme Court, if you're not going to believe the Jewish Supreme Court, who are you going to believe exactly? And then they found out that they made a mistake. So they have to bring a he-goat and it has to be burnt, and it has to be sprinkled in the inside of the temple. But he says it in the plural. He-goats in the plural. Why he-goats? It's not according to everyone. There's one opinion that says that every tribe had to bring a he-goat. If the majority of the Jewish people sin, even if it was one tribe, the majority of the Jewish people happened to be one tribe that had a majority of the Jewish people, and they all sinned. Every tribe in Israel has to bring a he-goat. That's what he says in the plural. Otherwise it wouldn't make sense. Why are you saying in the plural? So that you can say is referring to the kohen. If a kohen makes a ruling, he also has to bring an erroneous ruling for himself, and he follows his own ruling. He has to bring a bull. And if the Jewish Supreme Court makes an erroneous ruling for the entire Jewish people, they have to bring a bull. That's what he says in the plural. But the he-goat, which is only applies to the Jewish Supreme Court, why did he say in the plural? According to one opinion, the Jewish Supreme Court would bring one sacrifice. So he's following a certain opinion. So not everything he says here in this chapter is agreed upon by everyone. But nevertheless, overtly, there's no arguments here. He just says it without bringing a single argument. I guess that's the effect of sacrifices. When you sacrifice and you get out of your ego, there's much less machloikis. In marriages and friendships and business partnerships and communities, the less ego is much more friendliness, and people get along, and you lessen any argument. So this chapter, there's no room for arguments. You're talking about sacrificing, getting close to Hashem, and elevating yourself, and sacrificing yourself, and suddenly there's no appetite for arguments. There's no mention of any arguments. So he says, the only ones who are allowed to eat it are those who are designated in the sacrifice before it was offered, the Paschal sacrifice, and you're only allowed to eat it barbecued. You can't cook it, can't eat it raw. It must be roasted like royally. You have to eat it like royally. Remember, commemorating the Exodus, the freedom, like royalty, we left Egypt. Now, the Rambam counts this as two separate mitzvahs. There's the mitzvah number 5 to offer the sacrifice, Mitzvah number 6, to eat the sacrifice. And the question is, all the commentaries ask, that Rambam gives us a rule that 14 routes, 14 ways, he explains to us how he got to the number 613 mitzvahs. If you read the Torah, there's thousands and thousands of commandments. How do you get to 613? So he explains his rules, what you count, what you don't count. One of the rules is that you don't count portions of a mitzvah. There are many, many parts to a mitzvah. There's elements to a mitzvah, and there's portions of a mitzvah, like bringing a sacrifice. Well, there's many steps. There's many parts of bringing a sacrifice. You have to slaughter it. You have to receive the blood. You have to sprinkle the blood. You have to offer the animal. I'm not going to count it as 4 separate mitzvahs. If you're going to start counting like that, I don't have 630 mitzvahs. I have maybe 6,000 mitzvahs. These are one of the rules, one of the principles. So the question is, everyone wondering, why did the Rambam count these as 2 separate mitzvahs? Sacrifice the animal, the Pesach sacrifice, and eat the Pesach sacrifice. All the other sacrifices, he doesn't list every sacrifice as a separate mitzvah. There's one general mitzvah that the kohen has to eat the sacrifice because that's part of the atonement process. Whether it's a guilt offering, a sin offering. So there's a mitzvah for the kohen to eat. He's fulfilling a mitzvah. But it includes all the sacrifices. Why is there a separate mitzvah for the Pesach? Mitzvah number 5 and mitzvah number 6. There's a mitzvah to slaughter the animal, and there's a mitzvah to eat the animal. And he asked this from the son of the Rambam, Avraham. And the Rebbe explained his answer that the reason is because what we just learned here. The eating of the Pesach is unique. Yeah, it's true. The whole purpose of the sacrifice is in order to eat it. That's why if you bring a sacrifice in impurity, let's say the majority of the Jewish people were impure, and then it overrides the impurity, you're allowed to bring it in a state of impurity, you're allowed to eat it in a state of impurity, because the whole purpose of the sacrifice is to eat. So it emphasizes how much more so that it's one mitzvah. It should be one mitzvah. I'm sacrificing in order to eat. Although, if you don't bring a Paschal lamb, your life gets cut off. You get a chance to make up for it in the second Pesach. But other than that, your life gets cut off. It's one of the only positive mitzvot that if you don't do the positive mitzvah, a sin of omission, and your life gets cut off, you get such a strict penalty. It's a bris if you don't circumcise, and if you don't bring a Paschal lamb, the Paschal sacrifice. But what if you bring the Paschal sacrifice and you don't eat from it? Your life doesn't get cut off. You violated the mitzvah, but your life doesn't get cut off. So you see it's not the same, but still, that's not reason enough to explain. I think that's what Rabbi Avram wants to explain to his father, but that's not reason enough to explain, because ultimately the whole purpose of the sacrifice is to eat it. So even though eating is not a deal breaker, nevertheless, it doesn't matter. Even parts of the mitzvah that are not a deal breaker, it's part of one mitzvah. It's all the same mitzvah, so it should be counted as one mitzvah. Slaughter and eating. Why is it counted as a separate mitzvah? So the Rebbe explains, because like we just read, since when it comes to the eating of the Paschal sacrifice, there's so many restrictions, there's so many mitzvahs surrounding it. All the other sacrifices, you eat it. Eat it however you want. There's no restrictions, no limit. Anyone can eat from it, you can eat it however you want. Here, so many restrictions. You have to eat it at night and not during the day, till midnight. You have to, only those who are counted, who are designated on it, who are members in this sacrifice. They have to eat it in a group. They can only eat it at barbecue. There's so many mitzvahs in the eating. So since there's so many mitzvahs, there's so many parameters and mitzvahs that the Torah gives to eat, so you see that the eating is a mitzvah in itself, separate and apart from the mitzvah of offering the Pesach. So we just concluded the 5th chapter of Zavachim. Every morning we fulfill an essential part of studying Torah. First we read from the Torah, from the 5 books of Moshe. Every morning we learn a whole chapter in the laws of sacrifices from Mishnayos. We learn a Mishnayos, which is so essential. Mishnah comes from the word neshama. It's so essential for a Jew to fulfill our obligation to study Torah. And next week we're going to learn the opening of Torah's kohanim, which is like the Gemara. So we fulfill the mitzvah of learning Torah. We also, every day, we learn a little Gemara. We say this every day. We will start next week with Hashem's help, about the 13 measures, how we learn Torah, how we derive everything from the Torah. It's the introduction and the opening to the book of Leviticus. It's actually very, very good to know and very essential. And every morning you can fulfill your obligation to study Torah.